So you want to learn a new skill. Actually, you don't just want to learn it, you want to master it. But there's a catch. You don't want to follow the usual guidelines on how to master a skill. Everyone's heard of the same old already. Practice, be consistent, and everything of the sort. Things you can see coming from a mile away. But what if we told you that there was a secret, multiple secrets actually, that can guarantee you'll master any and every skill? And no, it's not anything you've ever heard of before. Breaking skills into components. What skills do you want to master? Let's say you want to be able to masterfully speak Spanish. How do you go about it? The first thing you need to do is break down that skill into its components. In this case, the heading is Learning Spanish. But what are the subheadings? What are the 9 steps that come before you're able to masterfully speak a foreign language? For this example, we'll go with the obvious. Learning Spanish grammar. It's a component, one of several that comes together to bring about a skill. Now, when you see it this way, you're suddenly inclined to ditch a Spanish learning course and instead pick up a Spanish dictionary. You're not just trying to learn the words, just memorizing common phrases and all, but you're thinking about what you're saying, the context, and the correctness of your sentences. 2 people who are learning the language together, you and another guy, could come to the same goal in the end, and that's learning Spanish. But what's different between you and him? Simple. He knows just enough to get him through a tourist trip, enough to converse with locals who know that they could throw you in for a loop if they wanted to. He learned a skill, but only superficially, whereas you mastered it. You know what to say and the different variants to say the same thing. You don't just say what seems like the right thing, but you're aware of what comes out of your mouth. Before you know it, speaking Spanish is like second nature, and now you're not thinking about it as often. You are able to master a skill, and now it's become ingrained in you. It's a skill that you'll get to carry forever. The other guy would forget it the second he comes back home. So, one of the most crucial steps in mastering a skill is being able to break everything down into components. The more the better, and then work on those components individually to come toward a goal. Habits become skills. What's a habit? How is it any different than a skill? A habit is something that you pick up and it becomes a repeated pattern. What makes it almost identical to a skill is that it becomes second nature at some point. However, they're 2 different things, because anyone could perform a habit. 2 people can wake up bright and early and go to the gym. That's a habit they both share. That's a habit common to several people in the world. But one person among them is a skilled bodybuilder. The others would only be lifting lighter weights, while this person is bench pressing twice what they could ever lift. This person is skilled, yet he shares the same habits as everyone else. So what does this tell you about the correlation between habits and skills? It's simple enough. Every habit you integrate into your daily routine can come together and create a skill. Habits are easier to master. It doesn't take long for a night owl to be able to wake up bright and early. However, it does take long to do that and become a professional weightlifter. The fact is that everyone who's striving toward mastering a goal starts by listing their habits and working on them. Waking up early is one habit. Making your way to the gym, following your reps, and then eating right are other habits. You should also know that habits are easier to learn and alter. This means that you can increase your reps over time, creating a new habit, integrating it into your life, and then getting closer and closer to your skill. Reward system and self-destructive rewards. A very common approach by people who are trying to improve themselves and learn new things is to take things one step at a time, and then keep themselves motivated throughout the journey with little rewards. For every 10 pages of your blog you write, you reward yourself by watching a movie to unwind afterward. Sounds harmless enough, right? Here's where the dreaded word comes up: complacency. People believe that the reward system can do wonders for them, and it might. However, when the reward is pulls apart from what you're striving for, then it undermines all the hard work you've been putting in. To master a skill, you need to show a certain level of commitment and dedication. While it's okay to sneak in a reward every now and again to keep you sane, none of these rewards should be counterproductive to the work you've been doing. This sets you back to zero. Also, the reward system has a strange hold on people and even can manipulate you. Imagine only fulfilling goals for a reward. What do you think will happen? Quite obviously, you'll fulfill those goals half-heartedly without any real progress. Now your path becomes less about the skill that you're hoping to achieve and more about the rewards scattered along the way. So learn the difference between a reward and a self-destructive thing masking as a reward. Realistic milestones, different deadlines. We've talked about components and we've talked about habits, and now it's time to list everything together and set realistic milestones for yourself. This is a guideline that's often repeated, and everyone will tell you about it. Then why hasn't everyone mastered their skills yet? It's simple. They set their milestones, but they didn't set deadlines for them. If they did, they set deadlines that were similar for all of them. For example, getting from point A to B is the first step, maybe even the hardest. To get there, you need to allocate a longer deadline. Let's say you give yourself a week for it. Then comes the next step. Getting from B to C is relatively easier. Do you still give yourself another week to get there, knowing that it's easier? No, that's something that most people would do. But to master a skill and do it right, you need to avoid it at all costs. Instead, you need to allocate varying deadlines for the milestones you've set up. Not everything deserves the same amount of time to get to, and in setting realistic milestones, you also need to set realistic deadlines. Everything has to happen at its own pace, but if you can fast-track some tasks, that'd be great. Early wins, dopamine high. Do you know what a dopamine high is? Well, dopamine is commonly referred to as the brain's happy hormone. It's something that's triggered when you're in a state of euphoria. Think back to when you were happy. The feeling was electric, and you didn't want it to end, right? That's the effect dopamine has on people. It's a high that they keep chasing. How can you manipulate this natural human instinct and turn it into a system, and at the end of which you get to master a skill? Easy. You give yourself incremental wins, with the first one coming way sooner than the others. When you celebrate a win, your brain becomes hot-wired to want to recreate that celebration again, and then again and again. If you scatter your wins, keeping them far, far too far away from each other, you risk losing that high. So if your first win comes early on, it motivates you to strive for another win sooner rather than later. The high does wear off, and to master a skill, you need dedication and drive. The drive comes from chasing the high. You'll notice that your next win came earlier than anticipated. The one after that came even sooner. Do you see a pattern? Now, instead of going through the agony of one step, one at a time, your mind just forces you to get ahead, reach your goals, and get another dose of dopamine. What to do when you hit a wall? The dreaded wall, something everyone comes face to face with at some point in their journey. It's the point of your journey where you've done everything you could, but you've lost the drive and determination because you haven't met any particular goal, been thrown off course, or the dopamine high is worn off. It makes you feel like everything has come to a dead end. But has it? The thing about walls is that they can all be torn down. This wall is an imaginary concept created by your mind, usually as a defense mechanism against failure. Tearing it down is a lot simpler than you'd expect. All you need to do is meditate. Meditation is an easy way to relax your mind and clear your head of any thoughts and emotions, especially the ones that are holding you down. If you're able to clear your head, you're able to recenter yourself and break down the wall, or at least find a way over it. Self-assessment and feedback. In the end, when learning a skill and planning on mastering it, you need to be receptive to feedback. Self-assessments are great, but it's feedback from people who have mastered the skill that makes a difference. They're able to empathize much better and can see how your journey mimics their own. They're also the greatest and only authority you should be following when it comes to mastering a skill. After all, they're the masters. What's something that's helped you master a skill? Let us know in the comments.